Her lips trembled, then spilled out the accusation, thin but sharp as a blade. "You want me for my body." Carver's jaw tightened. His hand twitched slightly on the reins. In his mind flickered the memory of soldiers laughing like beasts, treating women as nothing more than spoils of war. He spat hard into the dirt, his gaze heavy as stone when it met hers. "No." His voice came out rough, low, and steady as an oak. "I want you, because you don't beg." The prairie was quiet that dawn, too quiet for a land that usually cracked and howled with coyotes and restless winds. A thin veil of dust hung in the air like the ghosts of all the men who had bled into this soil. John Carver sat his horse at the edge of a dry gulch, the sky behind him a raw smear of red and purple. His face was older than his years, carved by the sun and guilt in equal measure. The kind of cowboy who spoke little, but every word landed heavy. A shotgun rested against his saddle horn, though the weight on his chest was heavier. The memories of a wife and child buried 15 winters past. He hadn't touched a woman since, hadn't let one close enough to remind him what tenderness felt like. The horse flicked its ears, catching something first. Carver squinted into the canyon below. What he thought was a pile of rags, discarded laundry from a wagon train, shifted. A weak cough rose, dry and cracked like a branch under boot. Carver's gut tightened. He tugged the reins, rode closer. It wasn't rags, it was a girl. She was sprawled against a half-broken crate, her wrists raw from rope, skin bruised in ways that told stories no soul should have to. A tattered blanket half covered her, but couldn't hide her shame. Her eyes cracked open at the sound of his horse, eyes wild and filled with a fear deeper than death itself. "Don't," she rasped, voice rough with dust and tears. "Don't come near me." "I know what you want." Carver froze, boots still in the stirrups. He didn't speak at first. He knew when words only made things worse. Her lips trembled as she forced the accusation out, a whisper but sharp as glass. "You want me for my body." Carver's jaw locked, his hand flexed on the reins. Something in him flared, a memory of men in army camps laughing like wolves, of women turned into nothing but spoils. He spat to the dirt, looked down at her with a gravity so still it might have been carved in stone. "No," he said, voice low, steady. "I want you. Because you don't beg." The words hit her harder than any slap could have. She blinked, stunned, searching his weathered face for the lie. But John Carver's eyes didn't hold lies anymore. Only loss and something quieter, respect. The girl, no, the young woman, let her head drop against the crate, her chest rising with shallow breaths. She was spent, hollowed out. But in that moment, something in her fear cracked. Not gone, not forgiven, but cracked enough for hope to crawl through. Carver swung off his horse. The leather creaked, boots hitting the dry earth with a dull thud. He didn't reach for her. He didn't touch the blanket. Instead, he crouched a few paces away, the way you might approach a wounded animal too proud to die whimpering. "You thirsty?" he asked, pulling his canteen free. Her eyes narrowed. Suspicion flickered first, then thirst won. She gave the faintest nod. He set the canteen on the dirt between them and stepped back. She reached, slow and trembling, lifting it to cracked lips. Water spilled, some running down her chin, but she drank like it was salvation itself. When she lowered it, her hands shook. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Carver didn't answer right away. He leaned back on his heels, hat shadowing his eyes. "'Cause I've seen too many left behind," he said finally. "And I ain't in the business of leaving another." The canyon wind stirred, carrying with it the faint echo of hooves. Carver's head snapped up, listening. Her eyes widened with panic, and in a flash, she grabbed his sleeve with what little strength she had. "They'll come back," she whispered, terror clawing her throat. "They'll come back for me. Please." She stopped herself, biting down on the word before it left her lips. She remembered his phrase, "Because you don't beg," and though her body shook, she did not say it. Carver studied her. She didn't beg, not for her life, not even now. There was fire in her, buried under the ash. He respected that more than she could know. "Then we best be gone before they do," he muttered. He rose, scanning the canyon rim, hand on the butt of his Colt. Her voice, faint but steady, reached him. "You don't even know my name." Carver glanced down at her, the first ghost of a half-smile tugging his lips. "Figure you'll tell me when you're ready." For the first time since he'd found her, her eyes softened. Not safe, not healed, but softened. The sound of hooves grew closer. Whoever had left her here wasn't far. Carver adjusted his hat, hand steady on the revolver. He had no plan but one. Nobody was taking her back, not while he still breathed. And so began the ride neither of them had expected. A broken cowboy and a bruised girl, bound by silence, hunted by men, moving towards something neither could name yet. The West didn't forgive. But maybe, just maybe, it allowed for a second chance. The sound of hooves echoed down the canyon like war drums. John Carver stood still, his hand resting on the grip of his gun, his eyes scanning the blood-red horizon. The girl curled tighter into the torn blanket, eyes wet, but her lips silent. Fear trembled out of her body, but Carver saw something else. She was holding herself back from sobbing, from pleading. He gave a small nod, almost like a silent promise. "I won't let them touch you again." The wind whistled through the rocks, carrying dust, and with it came the figures of horsemen cresting the horizon. 3, then 4, wide-brimmed hats, rifles slung loose at their sides, riding straight down into the gulch. Carver crouched slightly, murmuring over his shoulder, "Stay still, breathe quiet, don't do anything foolish." She gave the faintest nod, her knuckles white as she clutched the blanket. Carver stepped out, planting himself in the center of the canyon's mouth. The morning light struck his figure, stretching a long shadow across the dirt. He drew his gun free from its holster, not raised, but ready. They spotted him. A laugh drifted down, thin and mocking. "Well, look at that. Who the hell are you supposed to be?" one of them called out, voice dripping with arrogance. "Some drifter thinks he can block our road?" Carver didn't answer. He lifted his chin slightly, his eyes carving into theirs one by one. 3 of them were weathered men, faces hard and ragged. The 4th was younger, but his eyes already carried the rot of cruelty. "Where is she?" another barked, scanning past Carver. He didn't move. "Ain't nobody here but me." They laughed, harsh and ugly. "You take us for fools. We left her here, and now you want her for yourself." Carver spat into the dust, voice low, each word like iron. "People ain't property." The air turned heavy. The smirks faded from their faces. One of them eased his hand onto the butt of his revolver, eyes narrowing. Carver knew in that split second, if he didn't act, they'd ride him down, drag the girl back in chains. His gun cleared leather in a flash. A thunderclap split the morning. His bullet smashed into the pistol of the lead rider, knocking it clean from his grip. The horses shrieked, kicking up sand. The others yanked their weapons, leveling them at Carver. "Back off!" Carver roared. "One more step, and this canyon'll be your grave." For a breathless moment, his voice, and the unflinching way he stood froze them in place. The wind hissed between the rocks, carrying the pounding of hearts. Behind him, the girl trembled, but her eyes shone with a flicker of hope. For the first time since he found her, her gaze wasn't made of fear alone. The younger outlaw sneered. "You think you can keep her? She's ours, cowboy. She belongs to us." Carver's revolver swung toward him, steady as a church bell. "No, she belongs to herself, and you will never lay a hand on her again." The moment stretched thin, taut as a rope about to snap. The wind hushed, even the earth seemed to hold its breath. Then, one of them spurred his horse, charging. Carver fired. The shot cracked the canyon. The horse reared, screaming, and the rider was thrown hard into the dirt. The remaining two cursed, jerking their reins. Dust clouded as they wheeled their mounts and galloped back up the slope, dragging their fallen comrade away. The hoofbeats faded into distance. The canyon fell silent once more. Carver stood there, chest rising heavy, smoke curling from the barrel of his Colt. Slowly, he holstered the weapon. Behind him, the girl broke. Soft sobs, not shrieking, but the strangled weeping of someone who hadn't been allowed to feel safe for far too long. He turned, his face gentler now. He knelt so his eyes met hers. "They'll be back," he said quietly. "We need to move. Can you ride?" She shook her head, lips trembling. I'm too weak." He nodded, not blaming. "Then I'll carry you. But remember this. No one owns you. Not them. Not me. You are yours alone. Understand?" Tears streamed down her bruised cheeks, but this time she nodded with something else behind it. Not fear, but belief. Carver lifted her carefully, setting her across his horse's back. Then he mounted, steadying her within his arms. The horse gave a soft whinny, then surged forward, carrying them out of the gulch and away from the fading shadows on the horizon. On Carver's face, resolve returned, hard as stone. The true journey had only just begun. The desert swallowed sound. Only the steady thump of hooves and the rasp of the girl's breath filled the air as John Carver's horse pounded across the barren flats. Behind them, the canyon was shrinking into distance, but Carver's mind stayed sharp, ears tilted for echoes of pursuit. The girl slumped against his chest, too weak to sit upright on her own. Every now and then, she stirred, eyes fluttering half open, like she wanted to ask a question but had forgotten how to form the words. Carver adjusted his grip, steadying her with an arm strong enough to hold her, but careful not to press where bruises painted her skin. After miles of silence, her voice finally cracked through, soft and broken. Why did you risk it?" Carver's eyes stayed forward on the endless stretch of sand and sagebrush. "'Cause some things are worse than dying. Watching a soul break is one of 'em." She turned her head slightly, cheek brushing the coarse fabric of his coat. "You don't even know me." "Don't need to," Carver muttered. "I seen enough in your eyes." For a while they rode without another word. The sun climbed higher, the heat laying on them like a heavy blanket. Carver scanned the land, searching for shelter, for water, for anything. He spotted a line of cottonwoods in the distance, hugging what might be a stream bed. He nudged the horse toward it. By midday, they reached the shade. The girl sighed faintly as Carver lifted her down and laid her gently against the roots of a tree. Her body sagged, all strength drained. He filled a tin cup from his canteen and placed it in her hands. She drank slow, eyes watching him over the rim. "You keep saying I don't beg. You think that makes me strong?" Carver leaned against the tree, arms crossed. "Strength ain't just swinging fists or shooting guns. Sometimes it's refusing to let the world turn you into something less than human. Her lips quivered. She stared at the cup, whispering, "But what if it already has?" Carver shifted, his gaze cutting sharp. "It ain't. Not yet. You're still here, still looking a man in the eye, still asking questions. That ain't weakness. That's fighting, even if you don't feel it." She didn't answer, but her shoulders eased slightly, as if the weight of his words settled into a place she hadn't let anything touch in a long time. The wind carried the cry of a hawk overhead. Carver tilted his head back, eyes narrowing. His instincts itched. He'd been hunted before. He knew the feel of eyes crawling on his back. "They'll circle wide," he said flatly. "Those boys from the canyon. They'll try to find our trail." Fear flickered in her eyes again. Then we can't stay here?" "Not for long." He crouched, adjusting the strap of his saddlebag. "But you need rest. I'll give you an hour." She lay back, eyes closing, clutching the blanket around her like armor. Within minutes, sleep dragged her under. Carver stayed awake, leaning against the tree, rifle across his knees. The silence of the desert pressed in, broken only by the whisper of wind. He let his mind drift back to memories he never spoke aloud. A cabin in the hills, a woman's laugh, a child's small hand tugging at his sleeve, all gone, stolen by fever and fate. Since then, he'd ridden the land as if punishment was all he deserved. Now, looking at the bruised girl sleeping under the cottonwoods, something long dead stirred in him. Not tenderness, he wasn't fool enough to call it that, but purpose. The kind a man only felt when he knew he had one more chance to make right in a world that had gone wrong. An hour passed like smoke. Carver roused her gently. She blinked up at him, eyes heavy but clearer than before. "We ride," he said simply. They mounted again, pushing east toward the mountains that cut jagged against the horizon. The land stretched endless, the sun sinking behind them, bleeding red across the sky. As dusk settled, the girl spoke again, her voice carrying more strength than earlier. "My name. You should know it." Carver glanced down at her, surprised she offered it now. "It's Anna," she whispered. "Anna Lee." He nodded once, slow. "Anna." He rolled it on his tongue, like a word not meant to be forgotten. Her lips pressed tight. Then, trembling, she spoke the truth she'd carried alone too long. "They sold me." Her voice cracked, raw, like livestock, like I was nothing. "My stepfather. He drank, he gambled, and when the money ran out, he sold me to them." Carver's jaw locked, teeth grinding. His hands tightened on the reins. He didn't speak. Words weren't big enough for the rage clawing inside him. Anna's voice broke again. "I thought maybe, if I stopped fighting, they'd stop hurting me. But they never did, and I swore I'd never beg them. Not once. If they wanted to break me, they'd have to kill me first." Carver finally looked down at her, and for the first time since they met, his eyes softened with something dangerously close to sorrow. "That fire's what kept you alive. Don't you ever call that weakness." Anna blinked fast, as if the tears burning her eyes embarrassed her. She turned her face into the fabric of his coat, hiding. Carver let her. Night fell full, stars scattering like silver dust across the black sky. They made camp at the base of a rocky outcrop, the fire small, barely enough to warm, but hidden from wandering eyes. Carver sat on one side of the flames, Anna on the other, wrapped in the blanket. She studied him for a long moment. "You lost someone, didn't you?" Carver's face didn't move, but his eyes gave him away. "A wife," he said at last, "and a child. Fever took 'em. Nothing I could do." The words hung between them, brittle as glass. Anna didn't pry further. Instead, she whispered, "Maybe that's why you stopped for me. Because you knew what it was like to lose everything." Carver looked into the fire, the flames licking at the dry wood. "Maybe," he admitted. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was the kind that bound two souls together, even in brokenness. But beyond the firelight, in the dark of the desert, the faintest glimmer of another fire sparked, too far to be chance. Carver's eyes narrowed. The hunt wasn't over. The wolves were still on their trail. The campfire crackled, its yellow light flickering across John Carver's weathered face. He sat unmoving, eyes fixed on the distant glow of another fire. Anna curled in her blanket, trembling from the cold wind, her whisper breaking the stillness. "What is it?" she asked, voice shaky. Carver didn't blink. "Them. They're making camp. Not far." Anna froze, pulling the blanket tighter, as if she could vanish into the earth itself. Carver's hand rested firm on her shoulder. "Don't be afraid. Tonight, we hold the edge." "The edge?" She gave a bitter laugh. "You've got one gun. They've got a whole pack." His eyes, steel gray, cut into hers. "One man who shoots true is worth 10 who don't." Something in his tone quieted her heart, if not her fear. Carver rose, brushing the dust from his coat. With a swift kick, he scattered their small fire into darkness, letting the night swallow them. "I'll keep watch. You try and sleep. If trouble comes, you'll know." Anna obeyed, though her eyes never left his broad back as he took position at the edge of camp, rifle across his knees. Midnight. The wind carried smoke and dust, and beneath it, Carver heard it, the scrape of stones, soft as a whisper. "Anna," he said low. She jerked awake. "Quiet. Get against the rocks." She obeyed, pressing her back to stone, heart hammering. Then she saw them, shadows creeping, crouched low with pistols gleaming. 3 men, eyes glinting like wolves. Carver raised his rifle, steady as bedrock. The first shadow rose, and thunder split the night. The man fell before he could draw. Horses shrieked somewhere beyond. The other 2 cursed, firing wild into the dark. Anna dropped, covering her head as bullets tore dust and stone around them. But Carver didn't flinch. He squeezed off shot after shot, each one deliberate, each one striking true. Another outlaw dropped, his gun spinning away. The last scrambled back, shouting for help. And then it came, the pounding of hooves, torches blazing. 6, maybe 7 riders poured into the gulch, firelight cutting across their twisted faces. Anna's scream broke out. "They've found us!" Carver pulled her close against the rock. "Steady. Trust me." The horses thundered, their riders yelling like demons. Carver's eyes narrowed as he spotted the leader, a massive man with a ragged beard and a scar carved across his cheek. His voice ripped the night. "Give the girl back, old man, and maybe we'll let you crawl away alive." Carver roared back, voice like an anvil striking. "She ain't yours to take." Gunfire answered, deafening. Sparks lit the canyon walls. Carver rolled behind the rock, revolver in hand now, returning fire with calm, brutal precision. One rider spurred forward, reckless. Carver waited, then fired. The horse reared. The rider slammed to the ground. The others cursed, tightening their circle. Anna whimpered, "There's too many. We're going to die." Carver gritted his teeth. "Then we die, but I won't let them drag you back." She stared at him, this scarred, dust-covered cowboy with fire burning in his eyes, and for the first time, her fear gave way to something else. Trust. Bullets dwindled. Carver checked his revolver, jaw hard. "We can't hold here. We move." He dragged Anna to the horse, swung her up, and leapt into the saddle behind her. "Hold on!" The horse screamed as he drove it forward. Gunfire exploded around them. Torches blurred in the dust. They barreled through the storm, bullets hissing past like angry hornets. "Keep your head down," Carver barked. Anna buried her face against his chest, feeling his heartbeat hammer through the leather. Wind tore at them, hooves struck sparks from stone, and death snapped at their heels. A bullet smacked into a tree beside them. The horse lunged, nearly unseating them, but Carver's iron grip held steady. Ahead, a sheer wall of rock loomed. No way out. Anna gasped, panic flooding her voice. "We're trapped!" Carver's eyes darted, searching, and then he saw it, a narrow cleft in the stone, barely wide enough. He yanked the reins. The horse veered hard, plunging into the crack. They vanished into darkness as the shouts of their pursuers echoed, torches flaring futilely at the canyon mouth. On the other side, the moon spread silver over a desolate valley, a dry riverbed snaking through tall weeds. Carver slowed, letting the horse breathe. He turned to Anna. She trembled still, eyes wide. But she hadn't broken down. She met his gaze and whispered, "Why? Why risk your life for me? A stranger?" Carver looked up at the cold, merciless moon. His answer came quiet, almost to himself. "Because you remind me. There's still something in this world worth protecting." Anna's throat tightened. Tears spilled, but this time, not from fear. Something fragile. Something like hope had returned. In the distance, the cry of wolves split the valley. A warning. The night wasn't done. The hunt still burned behind them, and the reckoning waited just beyond the horizon. The valley lay hushed beneath the moon, silver light spilling across the dry riverbed like a shroud. Carver reined in his horse at the base of a jagged bluff, listening to the echo of hooves that had not yet faded. The hunt was close, too close. Anna clung to him, breath shallow, eyes darting at every shadow. Her whisper was faint, but steady. "They won't stop. They'll chase until one of us is dead." Carver's jaw tightened. Then tonight, it ends. He slid off the saddle, steadying her as she dismounted. They sheltered beneath the rocks, Carver checking his cartridges with calm, practiced motions. Each bullet slid home like a prayer. Anna wrapped the blanket tighter, watching him. "You could leave me. Save yourself." He looked up, eyes cold fire. "Not an option." Silence stretched. The cry of an owl cut through the still night. Then the thunder of hooves grew again, echoing between the bluffs. Torches appeared, scattered like stars across the valley, closing in. Carver drew a long breath, steady as stone. "Anna, listen close. You stay behind these rocks. Don't move till I say. You hear me?" Her lips trembled. "They'll kill you." His voice dropped low, fierce. "Maybe, but I'll make damn sure they never touch you again." Something broke in her then, something that had been locked tight since she'd first whispered her shame. Her eyes burned with tears, not of fear, but of a desperate, newfound loyalty. She reached for his arm, clutching hard. "Then if you fall, I'll fight beside you. Carver's mouth twitched, the ghost of a smile. That's the spirit, but save your strength. I'll need you alive. The outlaws rode in, circling like wolves around a campfire. Their torches burned bright, shadows leaping grotesque across the rocks. The scar-faced leader sat tall in his saddle, sneer twisting his face. "There he is," he bellowed. "The old fool thinks he can steal what's ours." Carver stepped out from cover, Colt in hand, his frame outlined by moonlight. His voice rang out across the valley, calm but edged with iron. "She ain't yours. She never was." The scarred outlaw laughed, the sound foul and hollow. "Boy, you just signed your death warrant." He raised his hand, guns leveled. Carver fired first. The shot cracked like lightning, torchlight flaring. A rider toppled, torch tumbling into the sand. Chaos erupted. Shouts, horses rearing, bullets screaming into the night. Carver moved with deadly calm, ducking, firing, shifting like a man who had fought too many wars to be rattled now. Each pull of the trigger was measured, deliberate. Another outlaw dropped, then another. But numbers pressed heavy. Bullets chipped stone near Anna's head, sparks spraying. She bit down on a cry, clutching the rock, heart pounding. The scarred leader roared, spurring his horse forward, a shotgun booming fire into the night. Carver dove aside, the blast scorching rock where he'd stood. He rolled, came up firing, grazing the outlaw's arm. The man cursed, nearly losing his grip, but held fast. "Kill him!" the leader howled. The pack surged. Carver retreated toward the bluff, reloading with grim efficiency. But a stray bullet slashed across his side, ripping cloth and drawing blood. He staggered, gritting teeth, forcing himself upright. Anna saw it. Something inside her snapped. She seized a fallen rifle from the sand, hands shaking, but determined. Carver barked, "Stay back!" She ignored him. When a rider charged from the flank, teeth bared, Anna lifted the weapon and pulled the trigger. The recoil nearly knocked her down, but the shot struck true. The rider fell in a spray of dust. Carver glanced back, eyes flashing with something fierce and proud. The fight raged. Firelight lit the valley like hell's own stage. Men cursed, horses screamed, guns thundered. Carver and Anna fought back to back. The line between protector and protected blurred into a single desperate will to survive. Finally, only two remained. The scarred leader and Carver, facing off in the center of the dry riverbed. The others lay scattered, groaning or still. Torches smoldered low, casting the scene in ghastly glow. The outlaw dismounted, shotgun in one hand, knife in the other. He grinned through blood. "You're finished, old man." Carver's revolver clicked empty. He tossed it aside. His chest rose and fell, blood seeping through his shirt. But his stance never faltered. "Then let's finish it." The leader lunged. The knife flashed. Carver caught his wrist, the two men grappling, strength against strength, hatred against resolve. Sand kicked up, blood spattered. Anna cried out, clutching the rifle, but dared not fire. Carver was too close. The knife inched nearer Carver's throat. His muscles strained, every vein burning. With a roar, he twisted, wrenching the knife free. In the same motion, he drove it home. The outlaw gasped, eyes wide, then crumpled into the dirt, still. Silence fell heavy. Only the wind moved. Carver staggered, bloodied but standing. He wiped his mouth, chest heaving. Anna rushed to him, throwing the rifle aside, catching his arm. "You're hurt." He looked down at her, eyes softer now, weary but alive. "Seen worse. She pressed her forehead to his chest, sobs shaking her body. Not from fear, relief, freedom. Carver's arm came around her, hesitant at first, then firm. He held her as the desert stars looked on. Dawn came slow, painting the valley in pale gold. The dead were left to the crows, the rest scattered to the wind. Carver saddled the horse, wincing at his wound. Anna climbed up behind him, her face calmer than it had been since the day he found her. As they rode into the rising sun, she asked softly, "What now?" Carver thought long before answering. "Now, we ride. Find a town, a place where no one owns you and no one follows me." She rested her head lightly against his back. "And you? Will you stay?" His eyes traced the horizon, the endless road of dust and sky. "If you want me to." For the first time, Anna smiled. A small, fragile thing, but real. The West was merciless. But that morning, beneath its vast, unforgiving sky, two broken souls found something rare. Not love, not yet, but the chance to start again. And in the end, maybe that was the only justice this land could give. In a land where law ran thin and only the justice of a gun remained, John Carver had lost everything. Yet in saving a girl the world had cast aside, he found something buried deep: purpose. Anna Lee, broken but unbent, rose not through begging, but by holding to the belief that her soul was still her own. And it was that pride, that defiance, that made an old cowboy risk his life to protect her. Out here in the Wild West, where cruelty stalks every corner, the most human thing isn't love, and it isn't victory. It's the courage to look someone in the eye and say, "You are not owned. You belong to yourself." If this story touched you, give us a like, hit subscribe, and ride with us into more Wild West stories. These tales aren't just about guns and horses, they're about people, about us, and about the timeless hunger for freedom, dignity, and one last chance to begin again.